This review has been made possible by Toyota of Naperville. As you know, Toyota has tons of brand new Toyotas available for purchase. But did you know that they also have a remarkable selection of used cars? Head on over to toyotaofnaperville.com and look through hundreds of used cars for sale right now.
Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I'm driving a 2019 Mercedes C300. Up front is a 2.0 liter turbocharged inline 4 and down below is an 8-speed automatic transmission.
This video is sponsored by CarMarshal.com. If you'd like to support the channel, click the link down in the description below. CarMarshal.com advertises for over 100,000 vehicles across the US.
But let's get back to that 2.0 liter turbo. Well, this is a smaller engine for these bigger cars. You know, it seems that a lot of auto manufacturers are starting to go that way. Smaller displacement with a turbo. You get better gas mileage. It's more efficient. Plus, 4 cylinders make now a decent amount of horsepower. It's no longer like the 80s where, you know, a 4-cylinder would make 70 horsepower. I mean, these are actually decently powerful engines. All right, so 2.0 liter turbo, we are in Sport Plus mode. Not bad, not bad. It definitely gets up and goes, it gets out of its own way. As you probably heard, put this down back into eco mode so it's not holding second gear. As you probably heard, it took a second to spool that turbo pulling away. So because this is the smaller engine, that is always going to be an issue with smaller engines, is that they don't spool the turbo right away. So you do get that lag, it's turbo lag, down low. I mean, Subarus have always suffered from this. Evos, you know, Evo 9s, the Evo 8 that I drove suffered from this tremendously. It's a similar thing here. You do get a lot of boost lag, but that's because, like I mentioned, this is not a sport-oriented vehicle. This is for passing people. So cruising, you don't need that turbo, but once you want to pass someone on the highway and you have the time for the turbo to spool, once it spools up, you're good to go. Like I said, paired to it is an 8-speed automatic transmission. Nothing too crazy here. It shifts when it wants to. It's not a very sporty transmission, but you don't really need that in the C300. The C300 is not a sporty-oriented vehicle. It's definitely still a luxury vehicle, and so with a luxury, it's going to have a little bit more pickup than your run-of-the-mill, you know, Honda Civic or whatever, but it's not sporty. It's not going to be super fast. It's not going to blow the doors off of the competition. You're not going to be doing highway pulls in this thing, you know, impressing people. It's just going to be a luxury car that can pass, you know, your average rental car. Last but not least, the C300 is all-wheel drive. So let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 2 physical gauges, which I really like. I just don't know how long Mercedes is going to be able to do this because, you know, competitors like BMW and Audi are starting to switch over to digital gauges. So I think the analog gauges here, I think their days are numbered. That being said, I really like them. On the left is my speedometer and on the right is my tachometer. And then I have coolant and fuel. Now my coolant and fuel gauges are like a progress bar in a video game. I absolutely love this. And as, you know, it warms up, the bars not only fill up more, but they get thicker. And so it's sort of this swoop, which is really, really neat. And the same goes for the fuel, which in typical Mercedes fashion, I reviewed a 1984 Mercedes, had this same setup. For the fuel is 0, half, and 1. So a full tank is 1. You have 1 tank. In the center of the gauges, I do have a screen that's offering me a couple different information. I have trip, I have my driver assist, navigation, stuff like that. On the steering wheel, I have my controls for the volume, you know, voice control, home, the screen stuff on the right, and then on the left I have cruise control options as well as my buttons for the center screen and the gauges like I mentioned earlier. So to the left I do have my headlight switches, and then I have my heads-up display. So yes, this car does have a heads-up display right above the gauges. It just gives me my miles per hour as well as my direction, so you can toggle that on and off. On the door is super classy. I don't know why it's just the door is like the classiest part. I don't understand that, but it is super classy. I do have a very nice speaker. I have 3 levels of heated seats, and then I have my seat adjustments with 3 different memory seat adjustments. Absolutely awesome. And then I have lock and unlock, my window switches, and the whole door is just finished with this nice wooden piece that I really, really like. In the center, I do have my radio screen. So turn it on here. It was actually turned off. I get a nice Mercedes-Benz logo. Do not let command distract you. So this is actually called the command center, I guess. And so it's very, very high definition. I really, really like it. Of course, you'll get your phone, Bluetooth, navigation, all that stuff run through here. And we can go to the vehicle settings, assistance, consumption, light settings, vehicle settings, operator's manual, stuff like that. And what I really like about that is up on the screen, it does display a C300 in a really cool way, and I really, really like that. I think the screen overall works really, really well. We'll talk about the joystick in a second, but I think it's classy. I love how high definition it is. That really separates, the boys from the men, is, at least in terms of screen, the clarity of it is definitely what makes it feel the most nice, which is just, it's great here in the Mercedes. Down below the screen, I do have 3 vents, which look very nice. And they are, of course, functional. You can move them around, turn them up and down, that sort of stuff. Then I have a bunch of buttons. I do have my climate controls left and right, so dual climate controls, my menu button, fan controls, stuff like that. Normally, I would say that these are too many buttons, but they're honestly super, super nice. They look great, and they are very functional, and I think it's bordering on too many, but not quite there yet. So I'm going to let this slide. It's enough buttons. It's not too many. It's not like the Porsche. The Porsche Cayenne and Porsche Macan. The Porsche Macan has too many buttons. Cayenne used to, but the new Cayenne fixed that. The Macan has too many buttons. Down below your heating and air conditioning controls, you have a couple different buttons for the radio, for the center screen, really, like I mentioned earlier. Navigation, radio, media, telephone, vehicle, and then your hazard switches. The nice thing about it is that they look great. They're very functional, very tactile, and in the center of them, you do get an analog clock, which I am a big fan of. I think it just looks super classy. I don't particularly need it, but I love the look of it, and it definitely sets it apart from the competition, which I really, really like. Then we have a giant cubbyhole that opens to reveal your cup holders, 12-volt outlet, stuff like that. And then we come down here to the actual switch panel for the center screen. So I do have my joystick. Joystick is fine. It has decent feedback. I just don't like the fact that it's hidden under this sort of pad, so I can't actually control it through the pad. We could change the ambient light. Wow, okay, so the ambient light, they really stepped up their game for the ambient light, because you can really change the color. You can really dial in the color. That is really, really insane. I really, really like that. I just don't like how the joystick is sort of covered up by this little hook-looking thing. I mean, I don't know. That being said, there's a bunch of interesting buttons around the joystick. To the left, we have dynamics, so we can change the drive mode from eco to comfort to sport plus to individual, which is going to be your custom settings. I really like this. I like the fact that it changes. When you put it into Sport Plus, it puts the C300 on a racetrack on the center screen, and I really like that. I just like stuff like that. Then down below that, we have the parking sensors off. Down below the parking sensors, we actually have a auto assist for parallel parking. So you hit this, or normal parking, and it starts sensing where a parking space is, and it'll help you park, which is absolutely cool. I think that's a great feature. Auto start stop off to finish off the left side, and then on the right we have volume and power, which means we could turn off the center screen completely. Then, like I mentioned, there is that trackpad that's sort of covering the dial. It's not my favorite. I don't like it just because it's in an odd spot. Then we have a clamshell center console. Now the seats, like I mentioned earlier, are heated, power, very comfortable, very adjustable, 3 different memory seats for the driver, which is absolutely awesome. Mercedes always does a good job offering a lot of memory seats. But speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so we'll do a back seat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 2019 Mercedes C300, and this is where you are going to start sort of compromising with the C300. Headroom, my head is hitting the top ever so slightly. I mean, I guess if I kind of sat a little bit different, it's fine. If I hit real bumpy roads, I might bump my head. But that is my seating position, and my knees do hit the front seat. This is where you're going to start compromising because this is a shorter wheelbase. This isn't the S-Class. This isn't, the full, thing. It's going to be down on a room just a little bit. It's not unbearable back here. You know, I've definitely sat in worse seats before, and I would say, honestly, your run-of-the-mill rental car is going to have a lot worse back seats as well. That being said, I'm really not impressed back here. I do have a center console that can, cup holders, I guess, fold out from there. It's not the best back seat if you're a business person and you have kids at home, but you don't really drive them around all that much. You know, your significant other has a larger vehicle to carry the kids around. This would just be like the odds and ends, you know, every once in a while, pick them up from school when they're sick or something like that. This is manageable. For your only car, if you're going to have 4 people in here all the time, I would look at a larger chassis or a different vehicle. But if you're just going to use the back seats, everyone, like me personally, you know, it's just me and my girlfriend. I don't really carry around people all that much. But, you know, if I had to, I have back seats, full seat belts. You know, they'd be decently comfortable. You know, it'd be whatever. But, you know, I don't need them all the time. This is really sort of a slightly extended coupe in my eyes of the fact of, yeah, it has back seats. I wouldn't want to use them all the time. I wouldn't, you know, want to shove someone back there every single day. But it's not the worst thing in the world. I do sit very high up. I feel like these seats could have done a little bit less cushioning, drop it down a little bit, and then the headroom issues would have been almost completely solved. But that's just me. Other than that, I guess I have an ashtray with a 12-volt outlet. I have cup holders in the doors. I do have 2 speakers in the door, which is nice. But overall, really a lackluster back seat. Last thing about the interior is the fact that I do have, it's essentially 2 sunroofs, but it's obviously a glass top. It continues on back there, which has its own separate shade. I really like it. It's definitely super classy. It's definitely a very modern move these days to have a glass roof, because a lot of luxury cars offer that now. It's just one of those trends. Maybe it'll stick around, you know, maybe it won't. Maybe they'll go away at some point. But as of right now, if you want to be in, you got to have a glass moonroof. Now we got to talk about the looks. I like the look of it. I don't think it's absolutely stunning. I don't think it's jaw-dropping, but I think it does look really good, and it looks really modern. Again, that's all I can really ask for from a modern car, is that it looks modern, it looks clean, and it's not super, you know, angular. It's not, you know, I like the direction that Mercedes is going. I always mention this. I think Mercedes of the early 2000s, late 90s looked absolutely horrible. And so I'm glad that, you know, 20 years later, they've recovered from that horrible, horrible phase. And I think that their cars look good, even though this is the C300 and it's nothing special at all. It's just, it's a good looking car, and it's a car that I'd be proud to own. Overall, I have to say I'm decently impressed with the C300. I don't think it's really anything mind-blowing. I don't think it's absolutely new territory, but I do think that it is a quality luxury sedan. I really don't have too many complaints over the C300. I guess my only complaint would be that it's not that particularly exciting. It's not exhilarating. It's not crazy, but the people that buy C300s, they're not looking for that. If you want something like that, move up to the S-Class, or you got to start looking AMG if you want to stay Mercedes. AMG knows how to make a performance car, and this isn't it. This is not an AMG, and so for a daily driver, I really could not ask more out of a vehicle. I really can't. It's comfortable, it's clean, it has the power it needs, it's spacious, it's luxurious. I cannot ask any more out of this vehicle. It's not a performance model, so it shouldn't be fast, and it's not, and I really, really can't complain about it. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned something about the 2019 Mercedes C300. Huge thank you to Toyota of Naperville for allowing me to take out their C300. This is one of their used cars. If it is still for sale by the time this video comes out, I will leave a link to it in the description below. If you guys are not into Mercedes, if you're not into Toyotas, Toyota has hundreds of used cars on their lot at all times. They cycle through so many new and used cars all the time. There's always something that you will want to buy on their lot. They have a huge wide range. So thank you guys so much at Toyota of Naperville, and thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys. Aside from my soul.